England are in the final of Euro 2024. They are one game away from immortality. Spain are the final team that stands in their way from making history. And this is how I believe England should set up to win it all. Let's talk about England's opponents, Spain. They are by far and away the best team of the tournament, winning every single match up to this point, and if I might say, quite comfortably. Their play bases around a 4-2-3-1 system, which quickly transitions into a 4-3-3 with players like Dani Olmo and Pedri, who unfortunately cannot play this game, mixing up with Fabian Ruiz, who was able to be more of a hybrid player in this system, allowing for Rodri to drift into the centre of midfield and take up his metronome role within this Spain attack, keeping their rhythm but also making sure that they are defensively solid just in front of that back four. Spain's flexibility in midfield is something that England haven't faced up until this point, and it's really something that I think England need to take note of. Here we have Spain in possession in their game against France. There are a couple of things about this moment that I think really need to be noticed. First of all, how high the Spain fullbacks are. They are really willing to go forwards and drive for their team. This not only helps out with the centre-back on the ball, giving him extra passing lanes and extra passing options, but it also pins back the France wingers. This allows and gives extra space and extra license for the Spain wingers to then come infield. Look at this run here with Nico Williams and Jules Koundé. But also what you've got is the hybrid player that I mentioned previously in Fabian Ruiz, moving forwards a touch away from his centre midfield partner in Rodri to occupy something of a 10 role. Next to Dani Olmo, who is also occupying that 10 role, Spain have a number of different players in the pocket. And what this does is it drags the opposition midfielders, or in England's case, England's midfielders, back a touch. It continuously pressurizes those spaces and makes them be a little bit more condensed. This gives Spain extra yards, an extra ability to be able to play passes, allowing them to move higher up the pitch and maintain a pressure and a real dominance over their opposition. The back four comprises of Carvajal, Lenormand, Laporte and Marc Cucurella, the fullbacks in particular willing to go forwards and support their young lightning rod attackers in Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. It's this form of attack that makes Spain so very dangerous. Yamal, with his fearlessness to be able to drift infield but also on the outside, really complements the way that Nico Williams drives at defenders while bringing Marc Cucurella into play through those overlaps. Dani Olmo making a nuisance of himself, picking up spaces in those half lines, making sure that he's able to break lines and passes to be able to get Spain on the front foot. Fabian Ruiz, again, making himself helpful whenever he needs to, being that hybrid player, and Alvaro Morata moving forwards into the box to get on the end of crosses, while also dropping back for the team in a more defensive role when necessary. As for when Spain defend, when they don't have the ball, you can see them line up in something of a 4-4-2, Olmo lining up next to Morata and Williams and Yamal being very willing to drop back and help out their respective fullbacks. One of the things that England need to be most concerned about when looking at this Spain side is Spain's counter-press, the ability for them to win the ball back once they have lost possession. This is an example that France had in their game against Spain, and take a look at this. Currently, Rabiot has the ball, and he's about to be closed down by a number of Spain forwards. Look at this. 1, 2, 3. All willing to close down this pocket of space to try and win back the ball as high up the pitch as humanly possible. This then funnels France down into this left-hand side without a proper outball. You've got the right back pushing up as far as he can, you've got a midfielder ready to cut out the space, and you've got the winger ready to stop any kind of press that goes back the other way. And this just makes it so much more difficult for the team that's on the ball to be able to make their possession worth anything. In the end, what ends up happening is they play it long after recycling it back towards their centre-back, and they lose the ball. They lose possession by going long and going forwards, and it just means that Spain are able to recover possession once more and go again with yet another attack. Look, here we have Rodri, who's just currently marking Colomboani, the ball gets played through, and Spain recycle. Spain's counter-press is devastating, and if England are not prepared for this, with set plays and abilities and motions to be able to get them out of tight-knit scenarios, I fear that they're going to be subject to a lot of pressure that they might not be able to handle over 90 minutes. From an aerial point of view, Lenormand is very dangerous from that, and Laporte is very good at maintaining that aerial presence while also being quite dominating on the ball as well. Spain take a more direct approach in these times rather than that heavy possession-based football, not being afraid to miss out some key passes while finding some of their most dangerous players as quickly as possible. In short, Spain are a pretty devastating side, dominating flank after flank and also having that intricate ability to play through the centre of the pitch. No mean feat for England to try and get something out of it, but that won't stop them trying. Let's talk about England's formation, because I think it's safe to say that going into the game against the Netherlands, I was sceptical about them sticking with a back three. However, what I wasn't sceptical about was sticking with this midfield four formation, and it actually was this formation that I was so very impressed with. In fact, I went as far as to say in my previous video that the first half against the Netherlands was England's best performance at the tournament by quite a distance, and this was down to the rotation that these three players in particular had around the Netherlands midfield, pulling them apart and drifting into different spaces, in particular this right hand side. The way that Kobbie Mainoo, Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka worked together in tandem was pretty phenomenal, and it ended up and realised with Phil Foden getting a number of different opportunities in space on the edge of the box. Now this is something that I believe England can replicate again against Spain if they make sure that they utilise the ball efficiently and really position themselves into good areas, something that I think with the intelligence that they've got and the ability that they have on the football they can do. But once again, they need to be very, very brave. From a defensive point of view, I thought they did stand up quite well. They were narrow, they made sure that they were very compact, and they all worked together as a unit. And also what I was really impressed with was their flexibility. This is the flexibility that I'm talking about. Because the England back five comprises of Kyle Walker, John Stones, Mark Gahey, Luke Shaw and Bukayo Saka, what ends up happening is they have a flexibility in the way that they defend, meaning that if they want to, they can have a right back, two centre backs and a left back, and this means that they can defend in either a back four or a back three. Now this gives them a very unique flexibility when it comes to defending against a number of different attacks. For example, in this particular scenario, England have a back four, and this allows them to push up Bukayo Saka as a right winger, and it has Jude Bellingham as a left winger. This not only keeps a balance in defence, but also allows and maintains for a steady defensive workman-like partnership between Harry Kane and Phil Foden. It keeps Kobbie Mainoo and Declan Rice very tight-knit and close together, and it keeps England's condensed and really compact to stop any kind of play through the centre of the pitch. Of course, this can change and they can also flip back to a back five if they ever need to. It's this flexibility that I was extremely impressed with in the game against the Netherlands. However, the back five didn't come without its problems. I previously wanted England to switch to a back four. This was to allow an extra winger in the likes of Anthony Gordon or Cole Palmer to come on the left hand side. This would give England an extra out ball to be able to fight up against Nathan Ake, the likes of Virgil van Dijk and Stefan de Vrij. The problem that England had at certain times with this back five is when this happened. Bukayo Saka comes back with Cody Gakpo, Kyle Walker, John Stones, Mark Gahey and Luke Shaw all stay flat in a back five. Now the problem with this is that England failed to have an out ball. The only player that they had was Harry Kane. And with Harry Kane's lack of physicality, his lack of mobility, the ability for England to try and get out was somewhat limited. Let's play this on a bit, because Nathan Ake crosses the ball into the box and Declan Rice here heads the ball away. Now the problem that England had on a couple of occasions is no matter how much he tried, Harry Kane struggled to regain the ball to allow England to push up. Now, Here he is in a duel against Schouten. He ends up losing out on this duel, and that means that the Netherlands are then able to recycle possession round a couple more times. It eventually ended in a Netherlands mistake, but my fear is that with the ability on the ball that Spain possess, with the ability that Rodri possesses and the two exciting electric wingers, I fear that England are going to be punished in an essence where the Netherlands failed to do so, and this is down to their lack of outball. If, for example, this was a different player with a little bit more pace, or perhaps another player out on the wing with again a little bit more pace, England would have the ability to not only counter-attack, but also regain the ball a little bit easier, and it's in this that I fear this system falls through. And it is against Spain that I believe this problem will be compounded. Because of the way that Spain attack and the directness that they have, not only with the assistance of their fullbacks, I believe that Spain going forwards are going to pose a much higher threat than the Netherlands did. For example, if Lamine Yamal ends up drifting infield, it then allows Carvajal to move out on the outside. This is going to drag Luke Shaw away. If he drags Luke Shaw away, Jude Bellingham is going to need to drop to help with the interplay of the rest of this squad. And the same could happen on the opposite side. So Williams drifts infield and you've got an overlapping run from Marc Cucurella. If this happens and England become a more flat back five, they will struggle to get out because of the recovery ability of Rodri and the two Spain centre-backs. Because Phil Foden has to drop a little bit deeper, Harry Kane will be left isolated on a number of occasions. And if Spain are able to recycle as much as the Netherlands were, I fear that inevitably they are going to be able to get some kind of major opportunity. So I pose a different answer. If, for example, Harry Kane was someone like an Ollie Watkins, for example, he would be able to spin in beyond and really attack the space down the wings. In doing this, not only is it going to drag the England players forward a little bit, it also gives them a little bit more respite. I believe that Spain are a much better possession-based side than the Netherlands are at the moment. And even against the Netherlands, I think England got away with a couple of things. So if Ollie Watkins was able to win a 50-50, if he was able to win a duel and then run into the channel, not only would it get England up the pitch a little bit more, but it would also give them an extra dynamic to be able to counterattack. One of the most notable avenues for attack for Spain will be down the flanks, both through Lamine Yamal and through Nico Williams. It's going to be extremely important for Phil Foden and Jude Bellingham to make sure they make those covering runs for Luke Shaw and Bukayo Saka, because when Carvajal and when Marc Cucurella make overlapping runs, that's going to drag them away, and then you're going to be left with Lamine Yamal and with Nico Williams to really go forwards. And it's then down to the likes of Kobbie Mainoo, the likes of Phil Foden to try and stop these attacks, and on the same side it's down to Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham to try and nullify them from coming inside. It's the interplay through the centre of the pitch that's going to be extremely vital, and this is where the back five comes in and why I think it's such a good idea, because then you've got another stopping block in Mark Gahey and Kyle Walker on both flanks. It's going to be difficult, it's going to be tough to really stop that interplay, but if they get it right and if they have them positioned in the correct areas, it might be something that England can try to stop. For England to be as defensively resolute as possible, they're going to need to make sure that the ball doesn't get to Spain's main creator in Rodri. His ability to drop extremely deep, receive the ball, and then recycle it round to the wings is second to none. And I believe it's down to Harry Kane or Ollie Watkins to really make a sacrificial play here to make sure that Rodri cannot get on the ball. They need to follow him, they need to make sure that he cannot play, they need to close down the channels, and then that naturally just puts the onus on the rest of his Spanish teammates. It will force them to go looking for the ball, dropping a little bit deeper to try and receive passes. Look for Fabian Ruiz to drop that little bit deeper to help out Rodri. And then you're talking about the likes of Bellingham. Then you're talking about the likes of Foden to mark him out of the game. And all of a sudden, you might start to see a bit of joy come from England. Declan Rice jumping a little bit, Bellingham jumping, and then you're looking towards the ability to turn over the ball and then go back the other way. England have a tough task on their hands, but it will be made even more difficult, infinitely more difficult, if Rodri is not kept quiet. I believe that Harry Kane or Ollie Watkins or even Ivan Toney need to take a sacrifice for the side to stop the Spanish playmaker from having a part in this game. I think you know where I'm going with this. This is how I would set up England going into the final against Spain. I've kept pretty much everything the same, bar two major positions. I think if you're ever going to play Luke Shaw, well, now is the time to do it because it's the final game. And we've already seen him get at least 45 minutes again under his belt, and he looks pretty good. Putting him into this left wing-back spot allows him to really dominate and go forwards on his left-hand side. I'd also take him against the likes of Carvajal. With him drifting towards the byline, crosses are then going to be able to be played towards the box, but also cutbacks towards the edge of the area. I'm looking towards the likes of a Jude Bellingham, I'm looking towards the likes of a Phil Foden, or even a Kobbie Mainoo who might drift in there. I'm then also looking at Ollie Watkins. If you think back to what I mentioned about England defensively, I do think that they are carrying a passenger in Harry Kane on certain instances. Too many times I feel like England have had the opportunity to be able to get out of their box when playing against a side who is very comfortable in possession. Spain are the best side at the Euros, we know this. So instead of taking the chance, I believe that Gareth Southgate needs to be proactive. I believe that he needs to understand that the space on the wings can be isolated by a player with more pace, more power in certain scenarios, and a willingness to run the channels. In doing this and in committing this selfless act, Ollie Watkins could not only push this England side up 10, 15, 20 yards, but also he could have a major part to play when it comes to breaking down the Spanish opposition. And by that, what I mean is this. One of England's major strengths in utilising this 3-4-3 system is having their two best creative players in Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden in dual number 10 roles. But they can't occupy and do their job in limited space. This space is going to be limited by Morata and Dani Olmo dropping back to condense the space in between the midfield. Not only that, but if Harry Kane were to play, the Spain centre-backs would recognise this and naturally push higher up the pitch to both condense the space from behind and in front. In doing this, Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden will have a lot less space to play in, which means that England need to find a new way of opening and stretching this Spain side. Enter Ollie Watkins. With his ability off of the ball, I believe that Ollie Watkins will be able to make driving runs and patterns through this Spain defence. If you played a run in beyond this Spain defence, it naturally would make the Spanish side drop a little bit. In doing that, that opens the space for the Spanish players to really have to cover, and it means that Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden naturally have a lot more space to work in. In doing this, the option for rotation and the option for movement is far greater. Kobbie Mainoo now has extra space to run into in tandem with Phil Foden. Bukayo Saka can now feature in 1v1 duels with his opposite fullback, and you've got the ability for Luke Shaw to try and get into some runs with Carvajal. Essentially what I'm saying is, with Ollie Watkins running in beyond, making those extra movements, England are going to be able to open up the channels and open up the space a little bit more. And this causes more problems for Rodri, more problems for Fabian Ruiz, and it gives Dani Olmo and Morata a question. Do they A, drop back even further to help with the condensing of their Spanish teammates, or do they decide to go and press? We know how good the Spanish press is, but if they were to go and do that and they didn't get it exactly correct, what ends up is having Rice and Mainoo have a couple of different options, and all of a sudden England are open, England are free, the ability for rotation is a lot higher, and you've got their better players on the ball higher up the pitch. It's this change that I believe could be the difference between England becoming victorious and possibly falling short. But of course, Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Just on Ollie Watkins and Harry Kane, I don't for one second think that Gareth Southgate will actually drop Harry Kane. I think it is an impossible ask of Gareth Southgate to look at his squad and leave out his captain and his star striker. But I've seen an issue that might unfold within this match and against this Spanish side in particular, and I've tried to find a solution. It's a solution that I really do think could work. But of course it is still a solution that might work in the game, very much like how Gareth Southgate brought on Ollie Watkins in the most recent match against the Netherlands. I just hope that if there is a problem, it's not too late and Gareth makes his substitutes early. For me, Ollie Watkins and Harry Kane both give fantastic qualities to the match. It's just in this particular instance, I've chosen Ollie Watkins. So what have you got? Finally, there's a balance to this side. Not only do you have a back three that's composed, that's aggressive, that's tenacious, but also is comfortable in different formations. They can play a back three or they can play a back four. With the now present Luke Shaw coming into this starting lineup, the balance that he provides out on this left-hand side is second to none, and he has finally come about, and I believe he must start. Declan Rice is the bedrock to this England midfield. Regardless of whether he's seen or not, he does so many different jobs off of the ball, away from the limelight, to allow players like Kobbie Mainoo to be able to go forwards and link the play. His effortless gliding ability with and without the ball is second to none, and he offers up a role that no other England player can fill. Bukayo Saka out on this right hand side drives left and he drives right, but with continuous quality, and he's no doubt going to be another star performer in the game against Spain. Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden in these dual 10 roles should be able to flex their creative muscles if given the correct amount of space by their striker ahead of them. It's in these pockets and with the overload of this four-man midfield, this four-man box formation, that I believe will give England the best opportunity to go forwards. But not only that, it's also their drive down the wings. I'm looking towards Bukayo Saka against the likes of Marc Cucurella. I'm looking towards Luke Shaw and Dani Carvajal. Will the Spanish wingers be willing to double up continuously to try and stop these threats? Or will England be able to get the better of their Spanish counterparts down the wings? And then you're looking to the likes of Foden, then you're looking to the likes of Bellingham to produce a moment. And of course, you have your striker in either Ollie Watkins or Harry Kane to try and get that all-important goal. And there you have it, guys. That's how I believe England should set up going into the Euro 2024 final. But of course, let me know how you believe they should set up and how you think the final is going to go. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care. Come on, England!